All right, we are live. Hello. Give me 1 second to double check that everything is good. And I think it is. Good. All right. Thanks for joining me tonight. We got many stories to discuss. Den is here helping out with the comments. So if you leave any questions, comments, concerns in the comment in the chat, Den will make sure I see it. Remember, you can always support this channel by going to patreon.com/Hemant, and you can subscribe to the newsletter right over here. I appreciate that too. And before I get started with anything else, let me share this with all of you. For anyone in the area, next weekend, this is like Saturday the 22nd and Sunday the 23rd. I will be in St. Louis and I'm giving 3 different kinds of talks Saturday night and Sunday for the Ethical Society of St. Louis. All the events are free. They are open to the public in St. Louis. All the details can be found at ethicalstl.org. Den just posted the link in the comment thread in the chat. So it'll be a talk on Saturday night, a kind of panel discussion of sorts on Sunday morning, and one more talk Sunday afternoon. So if you're in the St. Louis area, I hope I get to see you there a week from now. And so I just wanted to put that out there. Let's get started in just a moment here. Okay. I wanted to start tonight by talking about this woman on TikTok who I swear all my normie friends who do not care about atheism one bit, I feel like this is all they were posting about, sharing on social media this week. And let me try to summarize what this woman has been doing because it's gone crazy viral in the past week or so. There is a person on TikTok whose name is Nikali Monroe. And she's been running this fascinating social experiment to find out if religious groups are actually willing to live out their supposed values. And the way she's doing it is really interesting. As far as I can tell, the way this whole thing kind of started is she made a video talking about how SNAP benefits were set to expire. And that's true because Donald Trump and Republicans want to starve poor people. And she was going to explain that because those SNAP benefits aren't going to get paid, a lot of people are going to go hungry. They won't have vital resources to feed their families. And the response from a lot of conservatives, including lawmakers, has been, well, the government shouldn't be helping your family with food anyway. Go to your community, go to your churches. They can help you with this stuff, which obviously is BS. But setting all that aside, what Nikali did is say, all these Republicans keep saying, go to church to get food if you're hungry. Well, is that really true? And by the way, that video about the SNAP benefits she posted got under 1,000 views, which, if you're on TikTok, it's not a ton. So the very next video she posted was a different tactic altogether. Instead of just talking to the camera, she decided to call a local church and pretend to be a new mom who has like a 2-month-old baby who's very hungry. And hey, church, are you willing to help me out? And that's it. Let me play this video for you. This is the first video she posted. And basically, she called East Somerset Baptist Church in Kentucky. This is a church that, if you go to their website, they say they were founded on a commitment to Bible-based teaching, heartfelt worship, and community care. Community care. This should be perfect for them. So she called them up. Let me play for you the relevant part of that call.
Good morning, East Somerset Baptist Church.
Hi, yes. I was calling to see if you all were able to help. I have a baby and I do not have formula for the week for her, and I was wanting to see if y'all were able to help.
They stopped doing anything out of the church office about 2 years ago. We give to some places in town that, might be able to help you, like God's Food Pantry or Perm, but they don't do anything out of the church office.
Okay, so y'all don't do anything to help?
Not directly out of the office, no.
What does it mean when you say directly out of the office?
I mean that we give, like, some of our missions budget to places in town for that kind of a thing. Like to AIM, like sometimes AIM can help, or First Choice Clinic, we give to them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And there's that. They do not help your community. Not even to a mother who needs to feed her baby.
So that was the first video she posted. And in case you missed some of the things she just said there, when she called that church, they basically directed her to their office, not to their building, but they said, go to your local food bank, go to the Pulaski County Emergency Relief Ministry, PERM, which the church donates to. But basically the church said, we can't directly help you here. We're not here to help you. Why don't you go to these other places to get help, because it doesn't happen over here? So what did she do at that point? She called up another church. She called a different church in Kentucky, a church that declares on its website there's no greater joy than serving others. And the person who answered that phone basically said, we have nothing to offer. And she kept asking, well, do you have any options for me? My baby's really hungry. And the church asked, well, do you know any members of the church? And she's like, no. And the receptionist at the second place was like, well, without knowing a member of the church, and this is just the policy that the board members have set here, without knowing a member of the church, there's nothing that we can do. Which is, again, a very weird thing to hear from a church that pretends like it takes care of everybody and wants to serve others. So now Nikali realizes there's something going on here. So she called an evangelical megachurch. They said they had nothing for her. They told her to go to a local food bank. And at that point, Nikali pointed out on TikTok, it's not even that they don't have it. It's the fact that they don't even try to get it, or they give you one resource and think that's helping you out. That's the frustrating part. And so she kept doing this. She called so many places. People started commenting saying, why didn't you call this place and this place and this place? She started calling Mormon temples. She started calling a mosque. There was a Baptist church she called in South Carolina that said they only help people who are part of the church. To which Nikali Monroe responded by saying, the audacity. Oh my God, if you don't attend my church, the baby don't get to eat. And these calls got even more complex in the sense that Nikali she was already admittedly lying about having a newborn baby, but she started putting a fake audio of a crying baby in the background. So when she called, there really was a crying baby you could hear. And that didn't sway a lot of these churches either. People told her to call the Satanic Temple, because wouldn't that be a story? Except Nikali pointed out, well, it turns out they only have their one headquarters in Salem, Massachusetts. They don't have temples everywhere or anything like that. But as of a few days ago, she had called, she posted 39 videos. Only 9 places offered to help her out. And they included a whole mix of places. They included a Catholic church in Tennessee, a Baptist church in Louisville, Kentucky, a Buddhist temple in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. But the most interesting one may have been when she called an Islamic center in Charlotte, North Carolina. Let me show you this one here.
Islamic Center of Charlotte,
Hi, yes. I was trying to call. I have a 2-month-old baby, and I ran out of formula last night, and I was wanting to see if there's any way you all could help with a can of baby formula.
We can, ma'am. Where do you live? Do you live in Charlotte?
Yes, I'm like 10 minutes from you all.
Okay. And what kind of formula you using?
It's the Good Start.
Good start. Yeah, that's fine, man. If you come over here, we'll help you.
Okay, hold on just 1 second, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I'm actually doing a social experiment. So I don't have a baby and I don't have a need, but I am doing a social experiment just to see which churches would actually help a starving baby. And unfortunately, there's so many that say no, and you immediately was like, yes, of course. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for your heart. And also to see if it was okay if I posted this on TikTok and maybe put your information on there for your church where people can send donations. Maybe if they...
Yeah, no problem, man. We do what we can. We appreciate your kind words. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks. You too. Bye. Oh, he instantly... He didn't... Like the only question that he asked was, where are you located at and what kind do you want? No other questions. These other places are, they need to pay attention. These other churches need to take notes.
So I love that video for a bunch of reasons. And by the way, you could see a little screen, like a little screenshot on top of that TikTok video. Every time she called the church, she was basically saying, this is the place I'm calling. Just took a screenshot from the Google image, from the Google search for that church's name, which has their website and their phone number and their address, basically saying, yeah, this is a real place I'm calling. And people started hearing this. Compare what you just heard, which was just, oh, whatever. We don't care if you're one of us. If you're a member of this mosque, we will help you out. Compare that to a conversation she had with basically a pro-MAGA, pro-Donald Trump church in Texas, where they literally told her, unfortunately, the food pantry is only available on Sundays. And I don't know if we have any baby formula at the moment. And she's like, well, can you get some? And they're like, there's nobody at the food pantry. And she's like, do you have anybody that could get it? Basically trying to help them out here. To which they said, we don't have like food products for babies. We have stuff for like older people. And then she asked, are you a pro-life church? And the church said, I'll take your information and you can ask a pastor. You get the idea here. And by the way, when she told them she was doing this experiment, they hung up on her. So much for all of that. Now, there's a lot of criticism that's been leveled at Nikali since she started all of this. They're saying you're not calling the right people. Not the wrong churches, right churches or anything. Like, okay, this church has a lot. It's a really big church and you called their front desk. They don't know how to help you. You got to call this ministry or that ministry. To which the response is, this is the phone number on Google if I search for the church. So if the front desk receptionist can't help me, how do I know who to call? They also said, maybe they think you're lying. You are lying. Maybe they think you're spam. But if that's the case, and listen, if someone called me right now and said they needed baby formula, that would probably be my first reaction too. Like, of course it's spam. Who makes a phone call anymore? Nobody. But if you're a church and someone calls you asking you for help, not for like Nigerian prince money, but like, hey, I need baby formula that costs under $20. Don't you think the church would at least try to verify it? Or at least say, okay, if you're real, why don't you come to the church and then we'll help you take care of it? Or I'm sure our food pantry is closed. However, you sound like you need help. Let me just go run out and get some for you since you sound like you need it now. And this is the whole point of that experiment. This is why I really appreciate it, because all of these churches like to pretend they're helping people in need. What did Jesus say? Do what you can for the least of these. And what are these churches doing? They're basically hanging up on someone who actually needs help for their baby. And what do Republicans say? You don't need the government to help you. Ask your church for help. Well, a lot of people don't go to church. So what are they supposed to do? You know what I mean? I will tell you that of the places that did offer to help her out, they included one of those anti-abortion clinics that try to steer people away from abortion. She thought that would be interesting if they said no, but they offered to help. So that's nice. She got zero help from Dream City Church in Phoenix, Arizona, which is the place where Charlie Kirk did a lot of work out of. She called Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church in Texas. Guess what they said? We need a couple days or weeks to figure out if you're approved, which is, I'm sure that's going to be great for the fake baby we're talking about. So again, very interesting experiment. She's posting all these calls online. And my favorite thing about this entire series isn't even the videos of the phone calls. It's the comments underneath all of them. And I want to show you a few of these. These are comments people wrote underneath. My local mosque going viral is wild. Love that one. Mind you, this church has an Instagram post saying socialism is bad because it's the church's job to help poor people, not the government. Here's a good one. I don't remember Jesus saying you needed to be a member of his church for him to help you. Love this. I'm confident if you called the drag bar, they would help. And in response to a mega church that did not want to help, no food, but they have a $500,000 sound system. There was an article about this written on a Christian journalist Julie Roy's website. But look at this. 10 of the 43 offered to help, including a mosque, a Buddhist temple, an African American church, a Hispanic church, and a tiny Appalachian church. Johnny Dunbar, a 69-year-old great-grandfather and pastor of that Appalachian church, Heritage Hope Church of God in Somerset, Kentucky, offered to go out and buy the formula himself. We can do this, that grandfather said to Monroe. Tell me what it's called in case I have to go get it because I'm a great-grandpapa. Any flavor? And after he offered to help, she said, I don't really need your help. I don't have a newborn. You just touched my heart. I want you to know you're an amazing person. And look at this. His heartwarming kindness gained millions of views. His new TikTok nickname, Appalachian Pawpaw, and $95,000 in donations. People heard about his kindness and they just wanted to thank him. This is everybody's grandpa, and I'm Muslim, said one commenter, which is wonderful. I love that. A lot of them donated to the mosque as well for helping out really quickly. This is also interesting from the same article. Monroe described herself as basically a liberal tattooed lesbian who used to be a stripper, was a teenage mom, and doesn't go to church. But this Army veteran, Nick Howley, told listeners she's also getting her master's in counseling and is trying to start up more sober living houses in her community. She seems awesome. I mean, I love that she kind of accidentally stumbled onto this. I also love that a lot of people online have started keeping spreadsheets of who said yes and who said no. That's fun. But it's just a cool little experiment. And you know it's a good experiment because some people are getting especially mad about it. Let me share this with you. This is from Christian hate preacher Steven Anderson, who I've talked about for a lot of other reasons. But check this out from Steven. I would be pissed if I donated to a church and found out that they were giving the Lord's money to single mother whores. I would want it to go to the Lord's work or toward helping godly Christians who are in need. Churches should not be funding fornicators and their bastards, which I believe is a direct quote from Jesus. I honestly don't know why single mother is in quotation marks. That's like a fact. Grammar is not Stephen's strong suit. But the point is, if he's getting mad, you know you're doing something right. Think about what he's even saying there. What? A church that helps people who aren't part of their group? What sort of bizarre heresy is that? That's ridiculous. But if anything, I think what this experiment proves is, yeah, a lot of these churches tell you their values are one thing, but then in practice, they do something else. I mean, you all know this because we've all been saying this forever. It makes no sense that churches that promoted family values and purity are like, yeah, we'll vote for Donald Trump. He's our Lord and Savior now. They've never lived up to their values. They've never tried to live up to their values, and a bunch of their values are awful. But I love the creativity of this approach that just says, I mean, this isn't even political. This is me pretending to have a 2-month-old baby who's crying in the background. You can hear the baby, and I just need a little bit of baby formula. Can you help me? And how quickly so many of these places are like, don't call us. Why would we help you with that? The downside of all this is that because her videos are going so viral, it seems like this experiment cannot go on for much longer because people are going to catch on. People are going to be like, all right, if anyone calls this for baby formula, they have her picture somewhere in the reception or her voice or her TikTok channel, like right at the receptionist's desk. Like, if this lady calls you, give her whatever she wants, because they don't want to be on the wrong side of these videos. But until then, I think what she's doing is really showing the moral bankruptcy at the heart of so much religion, specifically American Christianity, right? Because these people preach about the sanctity of life, and yet they won't buy some baby formula for someone in need. And some of these churches are super small. They don't have a lot of people there, but not all of them. She's calling some mega churches. And you're telling me they can't even offer a little bit of help? That seems weird. Some of these churches won't help you unless you're a member. Okay, that seems selfish, but all right. I didn't realize grace required an application process or something. So I hope her threat of calling churches is scaring every pastor in the country right now, because it turns out a lot of these people don't want to love your neighbor whatsoever. I want to just share one more thing here, which is I am not comparing myself to Nick Haley, but I have some experience with something like this where about 20, I lost track of time, like 20 years ago, I also had a viral experiment. You can read about it. I can do this right over there. There we go. That right there. I sold my soul on eBay. That whole thing was about how me, an atheist, was secretly going to a bunch of Christian churches and writing about my experiences because a lot of those churches said, we want to appeal to the non-religious. We want to appeal to the unsaved. Well, that's me. I went to those churches. I wrote about what I saw and why it was appealing or largely unappealing. And it did go viral, which is where that book ended up coming from. But one of the things that happened, I got some of the same criticisms, which is it's unfair for you to base your entire perception of a church or a religion based on one service at one time. Whatever, they said anyone can come in. So I did what they wanted. I couldn't do the experiment for very long because people found out I was doing it. And again, brown guy going to a white evangelical church, sometimes hard to miss. That said, I thought one of the cool things about the experiment I did was that it started a bunch of cool conversations about the gap between what churches say they want to do and what they actually do. And what she is doing here, so much more creative. I really appreciate the way she's doing this. She's not coming at it with an axe to grind. She's not someone who goes to church, but she's also not like some, Bible thumping atheist who is telling you why the Bible is wrong or anything like that. She's just like, you guys, isn't this weird? So from one viral church person to another, like, I appreciate the experiment. I hope people catch on. I hope people keep talking about it. I appreciate that there are Reddit subreddits about Christianity that are like, well, this is embarrassing for our people, which, yeah, it should be. You should feel very bad about this, especially if your church pretends to care about helping the poor, and especially if your whole Bible is centered around helping people who are less fortunate. All right, I will stop there for now. What questions we got here? Thanks for becoming a member, Michael. Thanks so much. Thank you, Mary. Lots of members. Excellent. Really makes you wonder what the point of tithes is. Hey, listen, those yachts, the boats for the pastor, they are not going to buy themselves. How do you think they are going to get their private jets? I hope this continues to get attention. Churches need to be held accountable and or be taxed. Oh my God, there were so many comments online about like, this is why you need to tax churches. Because if the whole point of giving them a tax exemption is they're providing a service to the community, well, they're not. But yeah, it should get attention. Churches should feel bad about this. The criticism is because they got called out for the hypocrisy and they are trying to do some sort of damage control by blaming the person who did the experiment, who exposed them for being hypocrites. Yeah, it's very much no church is coming out of this. If they're criticizing her, they're not coming out looking great. Because even if you're like, she's a liar, yeah, she kind of said that in all the videos. She's not hiding that. And by the way, if any of these churches say, okay, we'll buy you baby formula, she cuts them off. She says, wait, don't do that. Don't spend your money. Let me tell you what I'm doing. So again, this isn't about money. This is about where is their hearts at. Part of me wonders if they only offered to help because they somehow saw one of her videos. And it's a fair point. It is a question that is going to happen more and more, that maybe they're aware. And so they're going to say yes for the publicity and not because they would help any random person. I realize it may also be interesting to note that I wonder if race plays some role in this. What if a man called? What if a black person called? Would these churches who have seen these videos online, what would the reaction have been if a church said no, if there was some indication on the phone call that the person calling would fit a different demographic profile? I don't know. I guess that just means more people should try these experiments in their communities and see what happens. By the way, I'm sorry, can we go back to the previous question, Den? One of the things I would point out, most of the videos she posted as of last week, those churches would not have known she was doing this because she posted batches of these videos at once. So she made the phone calls. It doesn't go like when it goes viral, it doesn't happen immediately, and it takes time for the story to spread. So at least with that first batch of videos, there's no way they could have known what she was doing. Now, if she kept going, yes, they may have heard about it at this point, but not for the ones we were talking about. This is literally a political goal for the churches. They badly need to control who gets what and what you have to do in order to receive help. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these churches put up barriers for their own members. But you would think, remember when Hurricane, which one was it that hit Texas years ago? And Joel Osteen's church, one of the biggest former basketball arenas in Houston, was like, we're not allowing people to come into our church and mess it up, until they got publicly shamed for it, at which point they opened their doors to people. And their excuse was, oh, we said no because it was a safety hazard. Yeah, you know what else is a safety hazard? The hurricane that's hitting everybody. Sometimes you need to shame these places. Hurricane Harvey, thank you. Sometimes you need to shame these places in order to get them to do the right thing. And by the way, like I said, she called Joel Osteen's church for baby formula, and they still were like, well, first you have to jump through some hoops. All right, I'm jumping to another story. Give me a second here. Got it right. All right. Let's talk about Kim Davis again. I think I made a video about this a few months ago, and I'm probably going to repeat a lot of the stuff I said in that video, but why not? Maybe this is the last time we ever have to talk about her. But basically, Christian bigot Kim Davis was in the news this week, and for once, it was for a good reason. It's because the Supreme Court said, we're not taking up your case. We don't want to listen to you. Go away. We're not dealing with this. And they said that. Let me go back and explain to you what the hell she was even trying to do. Because while rejecting her case is a big deal, it doesn't really mean it's the end of the whole war they are trying to fight here. So basically, here is what happened with Kim Davis. Years ago, Kim Davis was a county clerk in Rowan County, Kentucky. And in 2015, this is after the Obergefell ruling, after marriage equality was legal nationwide, gay couples would come to her office and say, "We want to get married, sign our certificate." And she's like, "But I'm Christian, so no, go away." And it's like, it doesn't matter what your religion is. You're a clerk. Your job is to sign our wedding certificate. And she still said no. So one of those couples sued. They sued her. She basically had to pay up. She owed them about like $400,000, give or take, in punishment and legal fees by the time all this happened. And Liberty Counsel, the right-wing Christian legal group, they decided to represent Kim Davis. And for 10 years now, they have been fundraising constantly off of the idea that they are the only ones willing to defend Kim Davis. And they're taking this all the way to the Supreme Court. And one of the reasons Kim Davis is just plain funny is we got to have Kim Davis. There's Kim Davis. Let me remind you of this good Christian woman's marital history. This is a woman who, in chronological order, stay with me here, she married husband 1, she had twins with husband 3, divorced husband 1, married husband 2, divorced husband 2, married husband 3, divorced husband 3, then remarried husband 2, just like Jesus demanded. And this lady was like, you know what I care about? Sanctity of marriage. So how did she justify the obvious hypocrisy about the sanctity of marriage thing? She wrote in her book that God wasn't in the picture until husband 2's mother died. And then they went back to church in 2011. So like anything she did before like 2011 doesn't count, you guys. And then she also said in her book that really it's kind of funny. It's a sort of divine irony because God is using her, this imperfect person who's been married a gazillion times, to defend marriage against the gays. So in any case, just to run down her legal situation here, in 2022, a federal judge said she broke the law when she didn't sign those marriage licenses because she was a government worker. Who cares what your religious beliefs are? Do your job. You don't get to pick and choose which laws to follow. And a jury heard her case in 2023 to assess how much she owed. And they were like, yeah, we don't buy any of your defenses. So they said she owed the gay couple, David Ermold and David Moore, she owed them $100,000. Liberty Counsel said, you can't make her pay any of this out. She works for the government. She's like a cop. She has qualified immunity. You're not allowed to sue her. And the jury's like, no, they can sue her. She owes them. Liberty Counsel appealed that decision, and it didn't work. Like the appellate court said, yeah, no, what the earlier people said is fine. She was breaking the law. Over the summer, Liberty Counsel said, well, we're going to ask the Supreme Court to step in. And that's fine. Anyone can ask the Supreme Court to look at a case. But what they were asking for, and this is where it got scary, they weren't just asking the Supreme Court to overrule the earlier decisions. They said Kim Davis has a First Amendment right to the free exercise of religion, so you can't sue her for denying those marriage licenses. But that wasn't the issue. In fact, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, they were like, that makes no sense. That's not how the country works. For example, and this is what they wrote, a county clerk who finds interracial marriage sinful could refuse to issue licenses to interracial couples. An election official who believes women should not vote could refuse to count ballots cast by females. A zoning official personally opposed to Christianity could refuse to permit the construction of a church. All of these officials would have wielded state power to violate constitutional rights, but they would have followed their conscience. That's not how the Constitution works. And when those two things are against each other, are in opposition, her conscience, they said, must yield to the Constitution. That's what the Sixth Circuit said. Liberty Counsel's like, nah, we're going to ask the Supreme Court to overturn it. And furthermore, what the Supreme Court was asked by Liberty Counsel was not just to undo the decisions against Kim Davis. They said, you need to go ahead and overturn marriage equality across the country, because they said it is grounded entirely on the legal fiction of substantive due process, which is their way of saying the Constitution never said gay people are allowed to get married. And just like the justices said there's no right to an abortion in the Constitution, the justices should say there's no right to marriage equality in the Constitution. So that was their argument to the Supreme Court. And this is what happened this week. I will show you this. This is the list of the Supreme Court's decisions. I'll come back to that in a second, but you could see this is just a list of cases. They just decided we're not going to listen to these. For whatever reason, we don't have any reason to take these up. And then on this page right here you have it. Docket number 25125. Kim Davis versus David Ermold, etc. Forget the first line, it's unimportant, but it says right here, the petition for a writ is denied, which is fancy speak for we're not going to listen to this one. And that was the end of it. Like, Kim Davis's case will not be heard, and this is what the headlines were afterwards. Supreme Court rejects challenge to legalization of same-sex marriage. I appreciated this from the BBC summary of this. The Rowan County clerk was ultimately ordered to pay $360,000 in damages and served 6 days in jail for contempt of court. The Sixth Circuit also ruled against her. In her appeal, Davis's legal team argued same-sex marriage was grounded in a legal fiction. What did they say on Monday? After the Supreme Court rejected the case, Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel said his client now faces crippling monetary damages based on nothing more than purported hurt feelings. Everyone shed a single tear for Kim Davis, who has spent the past decade trying to destroy same-sex marriage. And the woman who cannot be married herself for any long time is like, I see these happy gay couples and I want it to stop. And apparently, again, she now faces crippling monetary damages. You know what, Liberty Counsel? You've fundraised so much money using her name. Why don't you pay it all off? These people are just the worst. All of them. The other thing I want to point out, and this is from Right Wing Watch right here, Matt Staver also wrote this. I have no doubt that Kim Davis's resolve will serve as a catalyst to raise up many more challenges to the wrongly decided Obergefell opinion. He said his group will continue working with state legislators and individuals to overturn Obergefell and to return the issue of marriage to the states. The Christian right is not done trying to overturn Obergefell, but it looks like Kim Davis, the case that she brought to them was so egregiously easy to decide that the Supreme Court's like, you cannot possibly make us argue that every court who has heard this was wrong. Like, this is not one of those controversial cases. Even if the Supreme Court really wants to overturn marriage equality, they're not using Kim Davis's case as the vehicle to do it, which is, again, wonderful, wonderful news for now. But again, Christians are going to keep trying to do this, and that's disappointing. I will say, one of the things that struck me when I was talking about this story, looking it up earlier, is how little we have seen of Kim Davis in the past 10 years. And I don't necessarily I don't know why that is. I know that when she was first in the news about a decade ago, a lot of people made fun of her, fun of her looks, fun of her hair, fun of her 97 marriages. And I'm sure that wasn't easy to take, despite being a public figure, but whatever. She's a bigot and she was doing something horribly wrong. So, you know what? I don't really feel bad about that. But it is striking to me that Matt Staver's the guy speaking out after this Supreme Court's ruling, and not Kim Davis. I haven't seen her in the news very much at all. And I am kind of wondering what her next steps are after she pays this thing off. Like, does she just disappear? Does she go find husband number 5? What does she do at this point? How she's going to try to find a way to market this somehow. Is she going to go on a speaking tour? I don't know. But at least for once, the Supreme Court gave us good news by saying, we're not listening to this lady. We're not taking up her case. Give us another one. Maybe then we'll consider it. And somehow that passes for good news. When the Supreme Court says we're not listening to a case, that is good news lately. All right, I will stop there. What questions we got? Kim could cold call some churches. Hey, church, I need some money. Can you all help me out? And they'll be like, are you a member? And she'll say, what? No. Yeah, it's a great idea. I just don't understand what drives them. It doesn't interfere with their laws in any way, but they're so preoccupied with the thought of same-sex marriage. Yeah, I mean, it's a fair argument that people have been making forever. How does a gay couple getting married affect your marriage? Like, if it does, if you think it cheapens your marriage, maybe you should talk to your spouse about that one and not blame the world for making you think, oh, marriage doesn't mean anything anymore now that other people are allowed to do it. I mean, it's been the same argument forever because they don't have a response to that one. But they're not stopping. It boggles my mind that these people like to pretend they are the arbiters of morality, that they're the ones trying to defend morality, and yet everything you will ever see in the news about Christians, it's never about, look at all these Christians who help the poor. It's always, we got to cover up Trump. We got to cover up for Trump because, he was in the Epstein files and we don't want people being mad at us about that. So let's pretend that's a conspiracy. That's what they do all the time. There needs to be more punishments for parties bringing up all these frivolous court cases we are seeing today. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of legal groups that will defend someone like Kim Davis for free, so she doesn't have to pay them for being her lawyers. And that's not necessarily an issue, but they're just using her to get at something bigger. A lot of lawsuits are using random people to try to get a outcome that they want. It's not, and that's a legal strategy. Make of that what you will. But she's been at this for 10 years. And at this point, you have to wonder, like, what does that do to the gay couple that just wanted to move on with their lives 10 years ago? And they've been dragged into this for 10 years. I don't know what the punishment should be. I don't know what counts as going too far. But I feel like a $360,000 payment, that doesn't feel like enough. Especially since most of that's to their lawyers. I lost a bet with Godless Granny over this. I thought SCOTUS would say, hold our beer. I will say a lot of legal scholars I listened to were pretty sure there's no way the Supreme Court was going to take this up, only because this case is dumb. There might be another case they take where they will reverse Obergefell, but not this one. Not a good test case. Oh, thank you for gifting, Den. I appreciate that. All right, let me jump to another story. All right, what's the answer? I don't know. All right. Let's talk about this dude from Texas. And usually, you know, something bad's going to happen, but this is a good version of this. This is James Tallarico. He is a state lawmaker in Texas, a Texas state house member. He's 36. He's a progressive Christian. He is a seminarian. He's in seminary. And this week, this guy was subject to the weirdest political hit piece I feel like I've read in a long, long time. And here's basically what the story is. Tallarico is running for Senate, U.S. Senate. He wants to jump into the race to become the next senator from Texas. And that's great. Like, it would be there. It was exciting when Beto O'Rourke ran his campaign. He came up just short against Ted Cruz. A couple years ago, Colin Allred, was it a couple years ago at this point? I don't remember, but the former NFL star, Colin Allred, ran for Senate from Texas. He also came up short. And right now, Allred is back in the race to run next year. James Tallarico has also jumped in. I think Beto O'Rourke might be thinking about jumping back in. But that means the reason Tallarico jumping into the race is so interesting is because he doesn't fit the mold of a typical Democrat. This is a guy who can talk about religion fluently, which is an asset in Texas. He's like, I'm a Christian. I believe we should help people instead of whatever the hell Republicans are doing in Texas. He's also one of these guys who's willing to spend 3 hours talking to Joe Rogan. He can go on podcasts with the right-wing bros and just shoot the shit with them as long as he needs to. And they all walk away. The hosts walk away from those interviews thinking, I'm impressed with that guy. And that is a talent Democrats at that sort of level need to have these days, whether you like who they talk to or not. So anyway, the headline in Axios this week, last week, check this out. Faith forward Texas Senate candidate follows these adult actors and escorts on Instagram. Oh my God, he follows models on Instagram. What the hell is going on here? And here's the relevant part of it. And we'll go through this piece by piece, but check this out. And it's Axios, so they don't write stories. They just write bullet points. But let's go through this. According to Axios, and by the way, the author of this, I'll come back to this in a second. The author of this piece is Alex Thompson. Alex Thompson may be best known by progressive liberal Democrats and whatnot for co-authoring the Jake Tapper book that was all about how old Joe Biden was. And the thing is, yeah, Joe Biden was very old. However, have you seen the sort of crazy shit that Donald Trump does? Who cares about Biden's age? Look at the alternative. But Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson have been spending months and months talking about how old Joe Biden is. You remember I made videos about Lawrence Krauss writing about the war on science. It's like, yes, there really is a war on science right now with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talking about vaccines and autism and all that stuff. There is a war on science. Lawrence Krauss wrote a whole book about how, like, DEI is ruining science. It's like, what the hell are you people doing? The problem is all around you, and you're aiming way over there. So anyway, that's Alex Thompson. He's a guy who is a political commentator with a lot of credibility and clout in those circles, and yet his aim is completely off. So what did Alex Thompson write in this piece? Tallarico follows 10 Instagram accounts of women who are popular adult stars, OnlyFans models, and have accounts on escort sites, according to publicly available accounts viewed by Axios in recent weeks, which basically means someone said, hey, have you checked out who Tallarico follows? And someone at Axios was like, let me go through the list. And they kept a tally mark of who's hot. That's what happened. And they said, oh my God, let's look at the specifics. Earlier this year, he liked separate photos of some Instagram holder from Austin who also has an OnlyFans account and a page on a special site, a site that claims to be the #1 content management system in the industry. He liked her photos and were mad at him? Uh-huh. Those photos did not include nudes. Yeah, I'm sure they didn't. Why are we here? Tallarico also follows Instagram accounts of some actors, adult actors, like one of them who has a lot of followers. Oh, why? Who cares? Some accounts with matching usernames of the Instagram accounts he follows appear on other sites, while several use OnlyFans. All of those accounts include provocative pictures and some link to their other sites with explicit content, but don't identify their holders as adult film performers. Why? What are we doing here? Let me tell you how this works. If you are in any way famous, there are people who are going to follow you on your account, and then depending on who you are, you may follow them back. If I were a politician who had aspirations of running for statewide office in Texas, where there are like 900 million people, give or take, you know what I want as I'm thinking about my future political career? If someone with a lot of followers who appears to be influential and popular, maybe they expressed some kind of support for me. Maybe they liked one of my videos. Maybe they said something nice to me. You know what I might want to do? I might want to follow them back. You know why? Because when I'm running for something big, it would be really nice to be able to go to that person and say, hey, I'm running for something big. Anything you can do to shout me out, to tell your followers to support me, I would appreciate it. It is not weird if politicians are following people with big accounts. It doesn't matter if they have an OnlyFans. Everyone has an OnlyFans. Like, who cares? Now, it's a different story if we have caught this guy in hypocrisy. What if he's secretly like having a tryst with one of them, and then publicly he's saying like, of course you should never do that? Well, that would be an interesting story. But that's not what happened here. That's the sort of thing Donald Trump did. And it would be a different story if James Tallarico shared some of these models' pictures or videos on his account, but he didn't. You know who did do that? Ted Cruz famously shared an adult video on Twitter, or liked a video on Twitter. And he did that on the anniversary of 9/11 because, of course, he did, because he's Ted Cruz. All of that, if it was hypocrisy, if it was something crossing the line, okay, we can have a discussion about how newsworthy that is. Following some accounts is not a story. Utterly stupid that they thought this would do this guy in. And look at what his campaign said responding to all this. James has never subscribed to OnlyFans or an escort service, according to his campaign spokesperson. While James was unaware of how these women make money, he does not judge them for it and will not play into an effort to smear them for clickbait articles. That's exactly what his Christian faith calls him to do. Great response. The campaign said Tallarico has messaged with only one of the accounts and shared a screenshot of the exchange. And that is interesting. So okay, now he has messaged with one of the hotties. And Politico, here's Alex Thompson online. Let me go here. The campaign said he messaged with one of the accounts and shared a screenshot of it. Well, let's look at this exchange, shall we? Here is the model. Okay, what happened? She mentioned Tallarico in her story, so she was sharing something. She gave him a shout out. It's old. It's over like a year old, so it's not available anymore. And what did he reply? Thank you, Alice. And she responded with the heart. And she said, "Thank you. Really appreciate your work. It heartens me to see there are politicians like you." And that's the end of the conversation. That's it. And when I saw that, I'm like, this Alex Thompson seriously got that screenshot. And he's like, "You guys, I did it. I got proof. He's messaging with these models." And that was the message. These people have no idea what a real political story is. By the way, if that name is familiar to any of you at all, maybe that's because Alice Gretchen is a model and actress, yes, who also a couple of years ago wrote a book. I will share this with you right here. She wrote a book called Wayward, a memoir of spiritual warfare and sexual purity. She wrote an entire book about how she grew up in the evangelical purity culture, how it messed her up for a long time, and how she finally broke out of it. And by the way, this was all happening as she was becoming an actress on various TV shows and whatever parts she could get. In fact, if you go through my YouTube channel right now and search for her name, you will find an interview I did with her a couple of years ago promoting that book, because it really was a good book. She was delightful. And it doesn't surprise me one bit that she would have posted something about James Tallarico and said, "I like what you're doing. You're awesome. Keep it up." By the way, after I saw that screenshot, that dumb screenshot, I messaged Alice and I'm like, "Hi, it's been a while since we've chatted. Have you seen any of this? Your name has been invoked." And I asked Alice, "What do you think about all this now that you've seen what this story is about?" And let me share with you what she told me. This is the first I'm hearing of this article. I can confirm that Instagram DM exchange. I had shared one of Tallarico's reels where he deftly used the Bible to show how certain Texas politicians were being unbiblical and anti-American in their efforts to mandate the Ten Commandments being displayed in public schools. His inclusion of atheists amid the compassion he expressed while wondering how non-Christians might feel in such classrooms stood out to me. Tallarico has consistently stood out to me for his inclusiveness, courage, and conviction. To my knowledge, he's never been a subscriber of mine on OnlyFans. As to these scandal-seeking headlines about Tallarico following prostitutes, I have 3 words. Jesus followed prostitutes. You could tell that she's a good writer right there, but I appreciated that. But again, no kidding. Everything she said is spot on. If the people you interact with on social media or even follow are liabilities, I promise you damn near anyone who has a sizable following could be dragged under for the fake crime of a follow. Also, I find it hilarious that this is what a progressive Christian sex scandal looks like. We are in a news cycle right now where Donald Trump is spending all this time with Jeffrey Epstein and everyone's learning a lot of details about it. And James Tallarico once said thanks to someone who's hot. So, both sides. It's just the dumbest story. I think one of the reasons Republicans... so this raises an interesting question. Why would Axios publish this story? Who is telling them this is a story? There are theories out there. Was it a Republican campaign trying to screw over James Tallarico? Even more conspiratorially, was it one of the other Democrats who's very nervous about Tallarico saying, "Hey, Axios, look who he follows on Instagram"? I don't know what the answer is, but I think one of the reasons everyone seems to be nervous is, again, Tallarico is very good at using the language of Christianity to call out Christian nationalism and Christian hypocrisy. And the first time I heard of this guy was a couple of years ago because Texas Republicans were trying to pass a law to put the Ten Commandments in public schools. And he basically called out the fact that, hey, we're supposed to rest on the Sabbath according to the commandments in the bill. And yet this legislature meets on a Sunday. What up with that? Like, he just called out one hypocrisy after another. If you're not supposed to, sleep with your neighbor's wife or sleep with another person, well, what's the Republican leader doing? If you're not supposed to murder, why are we in Texas supportive of the death penalty? Like, that's what he would do. And by the way, that bill did not pass. This past year, a similar bill did pass, but he didn't let up. In fact, when he was questioning the sponsor of this year's bill, he just straight up asked her, "What's the fourth commandment?" And she just paused for a really long time. And you could see in video, her aide is like looking through a booklet trying to find the answer. Because again, that's what Tallarico is very good at. Here's something else I want to show you, and then I'll be done here. This is a poll that just came out last week. And I don't know if Impact Research was doing this on Tallarico's behalf or not, but this was interesting. Look at this item right here. Tallarico, for the Democratic primary, when you interview Democratic primary voters in Texas, Tallarico now leads Colin Allred by 6 points. He's jumped 36 points since August. Tallarico is on the rise right now. And Tallarico also leads Allred by 47 points among those familiar with both candidates. Tallarico is the new Instagram hottie. His fundraising is amazing. His numbers look great. The more people hear this guy talk, he's very much like Zoran Mamdani in that sense. The more you watch the guy, the more you listen to him, the more you are inspired and you want to drop what you're doing and go work for this guy. So that's what Tallarico is good at. His fundraising numbers are impeccable right now. He's getting so much support from so many people. That's why he's making people nervous. Because imagine for a second a very realistic scenario for next year. If Tallarico wins the Democratic primary for Senate, there is a chance that the Republican primary could be won by the Attorney General Ken Paxton, who is a walking encyclopedia of scandals. He is so controversial even among Republicans that Republicans in the legislature tried to impeach him. He's one of their guys. They tried to impeach him. Republicans who have no integrity whatsoever were like, this guy is making all of us look bad. They didn't have all the votes to do it, but they tried. Imagine if you have a battle between Tallarico and someone like Paxton. That could be the sort of race where Texas swings blue. And that would be a sea change for the country. I liked what Tim Miller of The Bulwark said about all this. Wow, finally a straight Democratic man who can go on Joe Rogan and likes hot women. That's what this scandal is all about. I think this is why the threat of a not weird white Christian who can comfortably talk about his religion without using it as a weapon against the marginalized is a real threat for a lot of people. They don't know how to fight someone like him. They don't. They're so used to calling people, atheists, communists, whatever. And this guy is like a really, I mean this in the best way possible. He sounds like a really boring Christian. And that is an awesome thing. I'm fine with that right now. You know what I mean? Anyway, this article in Axios, not journalism. It's just a hit piece. Cynical ploy to try to take down a candidate who scares all the right people. It was a nothing burger. I will leave it at that. What questions do we have here? They really aren't good at doing scandals. Who are we talking about? Progressive Christians, I assume? Probably. But yeah, like, hey, Tallarico, get some game here. Come on, give me something fun to talk about. This is boring. Get some good scandals. By the way, I did try to reach out to Tallarico months ago, maybe a while ago, to try to do an interview, and he did not respond to me. And I still want to talk to this dude. So if somehow he sees this video, James, let's do an interview. I want to talk to you. I love you. Can anyone tell me where Axios is on the political spectrum? Ooh, that's a good question. They will, I believe, go all over the place. Their thing is like breaking news. You follow them because you want to know what's happening, and it's not necessarily an op-ed place. But as you can tell from this article, they'll post anything. I don't know. I've seen some things from Axios that were like useful and important, and then other things like this where it's just trash. I got a pretty large YouTube page. I also follow atheist content, and I also have a lot of religious people that follow me. Who cares? Yes, I have a lot of social media followers. I don't know who all of them are. I follow some people. By the way, among the people I follow, there are plenty of people I actively despise on X/Twitter. I follow them because I want to know what they're up to. On Facebook, I follow a lot of people I just want to keep tabs on. I don't follow people I like. I need to keep tabs on my enemies. That's what social media is for. So, like, don't judge us by who we follow. We have our reasons. Talarico's response was basically sex workers are constituents too. And again, we could have a different conversation about who the hell cares even if he is following them. That's a whole separate discussion. But the point is, like, yeah, what are you mad about? That he follows people who are also popular? That's what popular people do. Back in the day when Twitter had check marks for verified users, if someone who was verified followed you, it might be to your advantage to follow them back. I mean, I've been watching your videos to help deconstruct from Christian nationalism. Thank you for standing up for religious freedom. That means a lot. Thank you for watching the videos, and I genuinely hope these videos helped in any way. But good for you for deconstructing from Christian nationalism. All right, let me jump to something else here. All right. This is a headline you may have seen in the news very recently. Check this out. This is from Gallup. They found that the drop in U.S. religiosity among the largest in the world. Wow. What the hell is going on there? And really, what it boils down to is one chart. And I will show it to you right here. Specifically, what they're looking at is the 38 countries that are members of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. These are, to put it crudely, like first world countries and things like that. And they're wealthier countries. And anyway, check this out. On this chart, the question is religion an important part of your daily life? And what this is saying is in the United States, I will remove myself so we can see this. In the United States in 2015, 66% of Americans said, yes, religion is an important part of my daily life. Today, 2025, 10 years later, it has dropped to 49%. That is a massive drop, 17-point drop. And the only other countries that have that sort of slide over a decade, we're talking Greece between 2013 and 2023. We're talking Turkey between 2008 and 2018. Portugal, 2008 to 2018. But basically, the US now ranks among the greatest drops over a decade between people saying religion is a part of their life and people saying, and fewer people saying as much. And what the Gallup poll says is that this is among the largest drops Gallup has ever recorded over a 10-year period since 2007. Such large declines in religiosity are rare. Look at this. Since 2007, only 14 out of more than 160 countries in the world poll have experienced drops of over 15 percentage points in religious importance over any 10-year period. So we are going through some rare times right now where fewer than half of Americans say religion is an important part of their daily life. That's kind of incredible there. I'll show you one more chart if I can. Let me pull this up really quick. This is the other chart they included in the Gallup poll. And basically, this is of those countries that were polled. There's the United States at 49%. But you could see right here, across the globe, that's the number at the top, 83%. Globally, 83% of the world says religion is an important part of their lives. In the US, it's at 49%. And according to the OECD countries, it's a little lower. But the US was starting pretty high. We're a very religious country, but even that's dropping. So here's the thing about the Gallup poll. They're not here to tell you why this is happening. So it's left for us to speculate as to why this is happening. This is the only thing Gallup said in their article right here. The steady decline in U.S. religiosity over the past decade has been evident for years. Fewer Americans identify with a religion. Church attendance and membership are declining. Religion holds a less important role in people's lives than it once did. But this analysis of the data puts the decline in a wider context, showing just how large the shift has been in global terms. Since 2007, few countries have measured larger declines in religiosity. What I found interesting about that poll is that a lot of other surveys, like the Pew Research Center, which I also respect the work they do, they have said in the US, like Christianity, the number of Americans who identify as Christians has like steadied or gone up in the past couple of years. And the number of people who have expressed no religious preference, that used to be going up and up, and now it's going slowly back down. And the question is, have we plateaued? Are the numbers going in reverse now? And that's not great if you're non-religious. But according to this Gallup poll, it doesn't matter what your religious label is. Fewer Americans say religion is an important part of their lives. And that's a different question, but that is interesting. That means there are a lot of Americans who will call themselves a Christian, an evangelical, a Catholic, what have you. They'll call themselves that. But straight up, is religion a big part of what you do in your daily life? The answer is no. And I don't know that those things are necessarily incongruent with each other. It is kind of interesting because honestly, for me, when I'm reporting on this stuff, when I'm writing about this stuff, what stands out to me is when it comes to Christianity, and I know I'm biased here, but I only really ever see it in the context of politics. Like, what are Christians doing? What are they encouraging Donald Trump to do to make our country a worse place? Christianity very much these days feels like a political label more than a religious one. If you tell me you are an evangelical Christian, my first thought is, oh, you're like a MAGA cultist, not, oh, you really love spreading the gospel. And so if you're political, I mean, okay, but then you're not really thinking of the Bible in any given day. Like, being an evangelical used to mean something. I mean, it wasn't good either, but it used to mean something. And now very much it's a political identity. You put on the right clothes, you wear the right red hat, you go to church. But you're not there for the Jesus message. You're there to learn which school board candidate you need to root for and vote for in order to dismantle history. Like, that's why you go to church. I'm not surprised in any sense that fewer people see religion as an important part of their daily life. Our lives are, I mean, we could have a whole different discussion about no one hangs out anymore. We don't go meet with strangers in any third places. We don't have any clubs we are a part of. A lot of people are more insulated and isolated, and that's not great for society. And one of the things church historically has done a really good job with is bringing together a group of strangers who only have that religion in common. So you could see these people every week. And that's good for social cohesion in a lot of ways. And if church goes away, And if church is declining and if people don't see religion as valuable anymore, except as a political thing, I mean, we are losing something that is kind of valuable. At the same time, I mean, we know what religion can do. So if people are ditching that, is it a net loss? I don't know. I don't know that it is. I hope people find some other way to hang out with others. I hope they have something else in their lives that they're passionate about, because I fear that apathy is a bigger problem than a lot of other things. I mean, say what you will about Donald Trump. The one thing he did is got a lot of really he got a lot of young white male voters who don't care about anything and got them to care about him. Not because it was good for the country, but because that's what he did that made him so powerful. He was able to get them to care about something. And those some things are like, let's go after minorities. It's not good. But so, I mean, if religion is dying off, if it's not an important part of people's lives, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I do wonder what they're replacing it with. But and if you're wondering why this is happening, I mean, a lot of the blame has to go to these churches for just becoming tools of the Republican Party. I know not all churches are like that, but the number of large mega churches that are basically handing over every sermon to culture war issues and politics, we're not better off because those places are still around. So anyway, interesting headline, interesting poll. I'm kind of curious if the data is going to find in future years that people are less inclined to be part of Christianity. They don't even want to use the label because it is too stigmatized as being associated with Donald Trump and Republicans. I have a hunch that the percentage of like white evangelicals is going to go down in the long term over the next several years, because whenever Trump finally gets out of office and whenever, if and when the Democrats ever figure out how to play politics, I think you're going to see more people just abandon right-wing Christianity. And that will be a wonderful change for the country. Okay, I'm done riffing on this. What other questions you got here? Then why does it feel like 95% of the US is evangelical? Yeah, that's a really interesting point, which is that evangelicals now represent, I don't know, roughly a third. I should say Christians, Protestants represent like a third of the country, and they represent like 99% of the Republican Party. And that is true. Like 99% of Congress among Republicans, 99% is Christian. And that's why it feels like that's all you ever hear about, because the people with power have the power in Congress. So they're a declining percentage of the American population, but they've always been a very influential part of our politics. And on the flip side, non-religious Americans make up about a third of the country, and we have like 1% of Congress. And that is a change. I hope we see that number change in the future. Did any countries covered in the study have a rise in religiosity, or was that beyond the scope of the study? That is a great question. I don't know that it was answered in the article that was posted today from Gallup. So I'm not going to comment because I don't have an answer for you. Shocking. When religious starts to mean the same thing as bigot, racist, sexist, and supremacist, less people want to identify as such. I mean, yes, I fully agree. And you know who should be really mad at this? Progressive Christians they're religious, so they're wrong, but also they're doing everything else right. And they have to be infuriated by the fact that conservative Christians have hijacked their entire religion to, worship their Lord and Savior, Donald Trump. It's got to be bad for them. And there have been stories about pastors who have said, there was a cover story, I think, in the New York Times about a pastor who said, I'm going to take an early retirement because he would try to preach on Sundays about why they should help the poor. And his congregation was mad at him because he wasn't talking about anything important, which is the MAGA stuff. And so even when they're trying to do the right thing, even when they're trying to talk about the good message from the Bible, their congregations aren't interested in that because all they want is like Fox News injected into their bloodstream all the time. Maybe replace it with humanism? Buddy, they've been trying to do that for a long time. I mean, that would be nice. That is better than the alternatives. Good luck, American Humanist Association. I haven't seen a rise in humanism. I have seen, I mean, the percentage of atheists in the country is like 4%, and maybe the percentage of agnostics is something really similar. And then the percentage of non-religious, but don't call us atheists or agnostics, is like 25, 30%, somewhere in there. But humanism usually isn't popular enough to make the cut on those types of surveys. I just hope that religiosity doesn't go up as things get worse. I mean, that's when religion pounces, right? If things get really bad, if we go through another Great Depression, religion's gonna be on the rise. I just don't know that it'll be the white evangelical form of it, but that is when religion goes up, when things are really crappy. All right, let me jump to something else. Am I wrong? Oh, wrong. All right, I'm going to jump to a different story. I wanted to share with you something I have not seen reported anywhere. You may have seen what I saw, which is a headline that said Florida Republicans are trying to introduce a loyalty oath for educators. And that is true. And then I was checking out that bill and I realized they're not telling the more scary story for me. So let me talk about this for a second. Here's what's going on in Florida. There is this bill that it got introduced a little while ago, but it didn't really make headway until recently. So this is House Bill 147 in Florida. It is being sponsored by Representative Tom Fabricio. There is also a Senate version of this bill, Senate Bill 430, sponsored by Clay Yarborough. And basically, these bills, you can check out the short description right here. Oaths of classroom teachers. Let's just look at what the bill is. Here we go. It's 2 pages. And if we scroll down, it's all brand new stuff. Here's what it says. Before entering upon the duties of a classroom teacher, each person employed as a classroom teacher shall subscribe to the following oath. So every teacher who wants to teach in elementary school, middle school, high school, let's see what the oath is. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and the Constitution and government of the state of Florida. All right. That I am duly qualified for employment as a classroom teacher in this state. That I will well and faithfully perform the duties of a classroom teacher in a professional, independent, objective, and nonpartisan manner. By the way, that's fine, but why don't politicians try doing some of that stuff? That I will uphold the highest standards of academic integrity and professional ethics. Fine. That I will foster a respectful learning environment for all students, which promotes critical thinking, civic responsibility, and lifelong learning, and that I will serve as a positive role model in both conduct and character. So help me God. And that is the problem with this bill. Because if you say all classroom teachers have to take an oath that the Constitution is awesome, at worst, I mean, at best, You could just be like, well, that seems like a waste of time. Why do you need these teachers to take an oath to say all that? Aren't you? Why can't we just assume that someone who wants to become a teacher is going to try their hardest? Why do you need them to take a loyalty oath to the country? Was there a big problem recently of like anti-American sentiment in middle school math or something? So the loyalty oath is stupid. No one needs to take it. This is a waste of time for all of this. By the way, the Senate version of what I just read you also says it applies to administrators, preschool teachers, and college professors, but it's the same basic oath. But I want to go back to the thing that's the biggest problem here, which is those last 4 words, so help me God. Because if you are going to force public school teachers to say this oath if they want to get into a classroom, you are forcing them to say, so help me God at the end. There's nothing in that bill that says you don't have to say that if you don't want to say it. There's no alternative offered for those last 4 words. And you may recall just a couple of weeks ago, I did a story about a South Carolina election worker who sued his state. That lawsuit is still ongoing because he wanted to become an election worker, but they made him say an oath that said, so help me God as well. And he said, well, I don't want to lie to get this job, but also my religion, my non-religiosity says I shouldn't have to say those words, and you shouldn't force me to say those words. And the state is like, too bad, that's what it says on the law books. And I think he's going to win that case pretty easily. But this is my question with this one, because why is the government forcing people to take a stance on God in order to become a classroom teacher? You can't do that. Every court said that forever. What's also weird in the same bill is at the very beginning of that oath, look at what it says. I do solemnly swear or affirm. You know why they have or affirm in there? Because there are some religions that don't want to swear an oath to anything. Their loyalty is to God, and swearing an oath to anything else, a piece of paper, a constitution, a flag, goes against their religion. And so basically a long time ago, the court said, okay, you don't have to swear an oath. Can you just affirm the idea behind it? And the religious groups are like, yeah, we're fine with just saying we're fine with the principle of this. And everyone was satisfied. But also, those people don't have to say, so help me God. Every other time you see an oath with that phrase, there's usually an alternative. Maybe you can cross out that phrase. Maybe you could say something else in its place. But for this bill to say everybody has to say that, this thing is dead on arrival without any amendments. It's such a sloppy bill that they just left it in there. So I don't know why they didn't include any alternatives. I reached out to both of the sponsors of these bills in the House and Senate. I basically said, are you going to make any amendments to this bill? Because it looks pretty illegal. And neither of them responded to me. No one's responding to me lately. What is up with that? But as it stands, I mean, even if you cross that out, these bills are not doing anything to help students. It's not really about patriotism or anything professional. It's just a demand for ideological conformity. Like the Florida Constitution and the US Constitution have a lot of things in it that are really dumb. And we should be allowed to say that. And I don't want to swear an oath to the Constitution because, and that's not saying I'm not going to follow the law. It's saying the Constitution has problems. America has problems. And I love this country. And that's why I want to solve the problems. That is patriotic to me. When someone takes the knee during the national anthem, that's patriotic. That's way more patriotic than people who just blindly say the words because that's what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean? So leave it to Florida Republicans to try to resurrect religious coercion. That's what they're up to down in Florida. This is not just bad law. It's an assault on one of the most fundamental principles of democracy, which is that the government cannot force a certain belief on you or non-belief on you. The Constitution makes clear that there can be no religious test for public office, and there should be no religious test to become a teacher. And now they want to institute one, which is ironic because the whole how do you swear an oath to the Constitution that forces you to do something the Constitution says you don't have to do and you can't do? Ridiculous. But their message is clear. The Republicans' message is clear. If you don't take this oath and if you refuse to bend a knee to their God, you're unfit to teach children, according to them. And it also sends the message to kids that their teachers have to profess a certain kind of faith in order to get the job that they have, which is the wrong message to send. So it's a horrible bill. I don't think it would be legal. Republicans in Florida have a supermajority. They could pass this anytime. They could get the votes they need for this. But I'm just saying, if they don't make a change to it, this thing is not going anywhere. All right, I will pause there on this one. What other questions we got here? Loyalty oath for teachers? That's not fascist or dystopian in any way. I swear Republicans will do anything to inconvenience teachers more. We saw it with Ryan Walters in Oklahoma. We're seeing it here with this Florida bill. Like, just let teachers do their job. Stop micromanaging everything. Stop putting stupid obstacles like this in the way. Just let them do the work. This is dumb on several levels. I don't need an algebra teacher defending the Constitution, and the fools who hired them should be the one making sure they are qualified to do the work. You know what? I'll disagree with that last part. The fools who hired them are the department chairs, are the principals, the administrators. They don't need to take it either. Let them do their job. No one needs to take this oath. Honestly, I don't even get why politicians need to take the oath, but I get why you want them to swear to uphold the Constitution. And by the way, little good that did us lately. But to make teachers do it, Jesus. Lovely. So they can fire you for being singled or divorced or LGBTQ. I mean, that's clearly where they want to go. This bill wouldn't do it because you're taking an oath to the Constitution. So it's a different issue. And they don't specify God. So they're like, you could pray to whatever, you could so help me God to whatever God you want. But if they had their way, you know damn well they would try to institute Catholic school rules in a lot of these public schools and just be able to get rid of you for a lot of this stuff. And pay teachers what they're worth. I mean, that would be nice. It's not happening in Florida. They're not going to do that. I love America more than any other country in the world, and exactly for this reason, I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually. Yeah, great line from James Baldwin. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that one. All right, let's see here. I have my guess. Really? 3? I would have guessed 2. In and Out. I haven't played that board game in a long time. You know what I am excited about? The new Knives Out movie. That's out in a month, right? Also, I did watch the Squid Game challenge because I love trashy, dumb reality shows as well as Survivor. And if you want to talk about it, reach out to me. Okay, let's talk again about Texas. I feel like Ryan Walters left Oklahoma and now everything shifts to Texas again. The state of Texas is suing one of its own school districts for following the law. And they don't like that in Texas. So that's where this story is going. And it basically centers around this dude right here. This is Ken Paxton, the most controversy-plagued Republican in a party full of them. but he's the Attorney General of Texas. He's the guy filing this lawsuit. And what this story is all about is, as I've talked about many times on this channel, Texas passed a law saying public schools have to put up posters of the 10 Commandments. KJV version, everyone has to do it. There's also a provision in the law that says if your school district gets sued over it, Ken Paxton's going to represent you for free, which is a way of saying taxpayers will be on the hook if anyone tries to fight this. And I'm not going to rehash everything, but here's the quick version of it. There was a lawsuit over that bill. Like a dozen families from 11 different school districts, they said, hey, if my school district puts up the 10 Commandments posters, it will violate the constitutional rights of my kids to be able to go to a neutral school where religion isn't thrust upon them. And this past August, a federal judge said, you're right, church-state separation groups. So I'm not ready with my complete ruling yet, but I am definitely going to hit pause. The school districts, the 11 school districts mentioned in this lawsuit, you cannot put up the 10 Commandments posters. And everyone else, like, wait for my ruling. And since then, the two sides have been fighting this insane war where everyone's trying to analyze what the school districts should do. So, for example, Ken Paxton wrote a letter to all these school districts in the state saying, well, those 11 school districts aren't allowed to put up the posters, but the rest of you need to do it now. And the church-state separation groups wrote a letter to the school districts saying, hey, we already won in court with these 11 school districts. If any of you put up these posters, we're going to come after you too. And by the way, not that long ago, the church-state separation crowd filed another lawsuit, identical to the first one, saying we have like another 14 school districts that are violating the law. Hey, judge, can you step in and stop this? And the judge said, I don't know if the judge has ruled on those 14 yet, but presumably the judge will hit pause on those 14 districts as well. But you imagine, you can understand the bad position this puts all these school districts in, because the state is telling them to put up these Christian displays. The federal law says those displays are blatantly illegal because they're promoting Christianity. And conservatives keep saying we're appealing all these decisions every single time because they're like the 10 Commandments. It's a part of American history. That's not what this is all about at all. And here's where we're at now. Already, the state has filed an appeals, has filed for appeal with the Fifth Circuit, which is notoriously conservative, but the 17 judges on the Fifth Circuit, they said we will take up all these cases in Texas and Louisiana, and I think they're going to hear that case in January. So right now, everybody is in a holding pattern. We're waiting for the judges to weigh in. I hope that Fifth Circuit will say, yeah, this is religion. You can't promote religion. Don't do this, but who knows? But anyway, Ken Paxton doesn't want to wait for a ruling. He wants every school to put up the posters anyway. And I think they figured out, the Republicans figured out how to do it. And here's what they're doing. In September, there is a Christian nationalist state senator named Mays Middleton. He's awful. I've mentioned him a few times on here. One of these Christian right guys who just files everything to exalt Jesus and does nothing for the people. He donated 10 Commandments displays to the Galveston Independent School District. I don't know if that's his home school district or what, but he donated hundreds of posters. And by Texas law, if someone donates posters to you, you are required to put them up if you haven't done so already. And so what happened? Well, after he donated those posters, there was a school board meeting a couple of weeks ago in Galveston. And check out what happened here. I will scroll down to 7D. Look at this. Right over here. We will discuss and consider delaying posting of the 10 Commandments donated posters until this issue is resolved by the Fifth Circuit. That's what they wanted to do. And you can even see if I can pull this up here. What did they finally decide? This was very quick. Whoops. But look at the recommendation at the bottom. This is from one of the school board members. I recommend district administration delay the posting of the donated 10 Commandments posters until the courts figure this one out, which sounds like a very responsible thing for the school district to do. Because if I'm reading that correctly, the school district is saying, we don't want to get involved in any legal battles. We don't want to get sued. So right now, someone in the state gave us these posters, which we're supposed to put up by Texas law, but federal law says don't put up those posters. What do we do? And this board member says, why don't we just hold off doing anything until the courts weigh in on this case, which again, sounds reasonable. Well, look at what Ken Paxton is doing now. And this is disturbing. Attorney General Ken Paxton sues Galveston ISD after it refused to display the 10 Commandments in classrooms. And look at what he says here. This is, by the way, again, the most corrupt, vile dude in the state whose wife divorced him on biblical grounds. Those are the words she used. And this guy who is notoriously corrupt, what does he say? America is a Christian nation, and it is imperative that we display the very values and timeless truths that have historically guided the success of our country. By refusing to follow the law, Galveston ISD chose to both blatantly ignore the legislature and also ignore the legal and moral heritage of our nation. First of all, by refusing to follow the law, they are following the law. The law currently says the 10 Commandments by themselves, posting them in a public place is illegal. It's illegal when the government does it because it's a promotion of Christianity. That's what the law is. So they are following the law. And it also says they're ignoring the legislature. Yeah, because the legislature isn't following the law. So they're right to ignore you. And he says they're ignoring the legal and moral heritage of our nation. No, there's no legal heritage that involves the 10 Commandments. That's why most of the 10 Commandments are not laws. This has been litigated repeatedly. Anyone who's read the 10 Commandments, which is usually not Christians, could tell you why this stuff, like respect your parents, that might be good life advice. That's not a law. Take a day of rest on the Sabbath. That's definitely not a law. So there's no legal basis for it. And if we're talking about the moral heritage of our nation, well, our nation began with slavery. So there's your moral heritage right there. What the hell is Paxton talking about? And then what else does he say? There is no valid legal basis to prevent Texas schools from honoring a foundational framework of our laws. There is, especially under the misconception that a separation of church and state phrase appears in the Constitution. It does not. Oh my God, I can't believe we're still doing this. Yeah, the phrase is not in the Constitution, but that is how courts have interpreted the Establishment Clause for decades now. No religious test for public office. You have a right to your faith. You have freedom of religion, freedom from religion. All of this has been verified and confirmed by so many courts for so many decades now. No one is arguing that the only reason we believe in separation of church and state is because the Constitution says it. No one has ever said that. Ken Paxton is dumb. So he's suing over this. And if you look at the lawsuit, this is maybe the weirdest part about it right here. Look at number 37. The only injury the Galveston School District may incur in coming into compliance with Texas law, if we make this school district put up the 10 Commandments, the worst that would happen is that they would have to display the 10 Commandments in Galveston ISD classrooms. This injury, if it can be called such, is negligible compared to the injury incurred by the state of Texas in one of its subdivisions openly flouting Texas law. So, in other words, if the worst thing that happens here is this school district puts up the 10 Commandments, they're saying, who cares? That's not a big deal. You know what is a big deal? Not listening to what religious demagogues say in the Texas legislature. This treatment of a school district by the attorney general of the state who hates public schools is so offensive to me. And again, Texas law here doesn't matter because there's a federal law that supersedes it, which is something a lawyer, you would think, might know. So that's what Ken Paxton's doing. He's going after school districts just to stick it to them because he hates them. So here's what I'm afraid of. I don't know that this lawsuit's going to go anywhere because the courts again have said school districts do not have to put this up. But I do wonder. Mays Middleton donated those posters to this school district, and now Ken Paxton, his buddy, is like, all right, this district needs to put up these posters because we gave them to you. So what's stopping Middleton from sending these posters to every district in the state that hasn't put them up yet and isn't involved in a lawsuit yet? And then Ken Paxton piggybacking on that and filing lawsuits all over the state. I'm sure he wants to. He doesn't like any of these school districts. And I'm not even giving them ideas. I'm sure they've thought all this through. The only thing I don't get is why they only have gone after Galveston right now. I don't know. This is just the latest way Texas Republicans are waging a war against public education. They've already tried to whitewash history. They've already tried to whitewash science, climate change, vaccines, all that stuff. They won't rest until they have replaced actual education with the sort of shit you learn in Sunday school. And even if the courts rule against Paxton in this case, which should be a no-brainer, all of this is a waste of time for the district, which now has to defend itself against this stuff. And instead of focusing on the kids, they got to devote resources to fighting their own attorney general. It sounds like Texas has decided the worst thing about its public education system are all the damn students and teachers and administrators who make it operate. So let's make life tougher for them. I mean, it's such a horrible... It's unfair that the school district has to choose between angering Ken Paxton or violating the Bill of Rights. It's a political minefield created by Republicans. It's not even about the 10 Commandments anymore. Ken Paxton just wants control of these school districts. And they're going to force teachers and students to affirm this Christian theology that many of them don't share. Even if they're Christian, they don't want this going up. That's how insecure Republicans are. They can't win people over. They can't win anyone over with their ideas because their ideas suck. So they try to force it on everybody. They can't win votes in fair districts. So what did they do in Texas? They rigged the maps and gerrymandered the entire state. What do they do when kids aren't growing up thinking they're heroes? Well, they weaponize children's education to try to make them think differently. Let's pledge allegiance to the flag. I think in Texas, all the public schools have to pledge a different allegiance to the Texas flag. It's all a waste of time. And it is telling that Ken Paxton's version of Christian nationalism involves coercion, threats, lawsuits, lies. That is what his Christian religion teaches him to do. And every hour that these districts spend fending off Ken Paxton is another hour stolen from the kids that they are supposed to be helping. So I don't know. Unless Texas voters ever decide they're sick of this shit, it's going to keep happening. They have a choice. They can vote against this stuff if they ever came to their senses. And by they, I mean the 52% of Texas who are Republicans. All these people, they always win with 50 some percent of the vote, and then they govern like they won with 99% of the vote. Same in Florida. All right, I'll stop there with this story. What questions we got? I wish they would spend that energy on educating kids. Sorry, not in Texas. Not what they do there. They do that in a lot of blue states, though. Ken Paxton is literally wasting taxpayer money to go after taxpayer money, wasting taxpayer resources on two fronts. No kidding. It is amazing. All these Republicans are like, we got to save money. That's why we can't feed poor people. But they'll spend, I read that it cost $2 billion with a B to change the Department of Defense to the Department of War. But because Pete Hegseth is like, that makes me sound cooler, they'll spend $2 billion for that. But they won't actually try to help people with it, because that's how Republicans and the white evangelicals and Southern Baptists who support them, none of this bothers them. None of this bothers them enough. I'm Hulana of Texas, and I do not approve of this use of my tax dollars. Thank you, Hulana. I hope you vote. And I hope you vote against every Republican on your ballot. I don't care who the Democrats are at this point. Thanks for becoming a YouTube member, Luck Dragon. Thanks for that donation. It is fun for me to be reminded how I once held these same religious views of government in my early years. I was around 26 or 28 when I finally came to my sanity, and 29 when I knew I was atheist. Well, good for you. And I'm always very impressed by people who change their religious beliefs or like become vegetarians when they are like way past high school, college, all that stuff. Because I feel like that's a lot harder to do as you get older. Not that you're alone on this. There are a lot of people who have done that, but I'm so curious to learn what it was that made you decide to make that switch. But good for you. Thank you so much. All right. I got one last story for you. Give me a second here to pull it up. Look at Den giving us grammar questions. Thank you. I like that. All right. One last story for you here. I decided I would save a amusing, happy story for the end here. Let me pull this up. Every now and then, a lot of you send me stories that you're like, why haven't you covered this? And I look it up, and it's just going viral on social media, but no one else is talking about it. And this one made me laugh for reasons you will see in just a minute. And so I had to go down that rabbit hole and figure out what the hell was going on. And what I discovered is not what I expected. So I wanted to share this whole journey with you. So last week, or just before Halloween, the city of Tega Cay, South Carolina, announced the winners of its Pumpkin Palooza 2025 carving competition. Basically, locals were allowed to submit one jack-o'-lantern for the contest. And the only rule, I'll show you what they posted at one point here. Here you go. Tega Cay's Pumpkin Palooza. This is a family-friendly event. And look at that second bullet point. Jack-o'-lanterns can be humorous, lovable, whimsical, but not distasteful, political, or inappropriate. We have the right to reject any jack-o'-lantern that is deemed offensive or inappropriate. Totally fine rule. I get it. And then you could see up here, look at their categories. People's Choice Award, whoever gets the most likes on Facebook, and a first place and a second place. And I have to assume first place and second place, there's some panel that's like deciding which one's really the best. But whatever, that sounds like the sort of thing a lot of cities do. That sounds cute, right? No big deal. So anyway, they had this contest, and this was third place right here. Look at this thing. Very impressive. Like, it's just a big, spooky eyeball. And that person won a $50 gift card to a local custard shop. And in second place, check this creeper out, was this. A scary, sewn up pumpkin. I don't even know how you do that, but I love it. That is impressive. So the winner of second place here received a family pack from a local mini golf course, which is exactly the sort of prize you want from your local town. And drumroll, please, what was first place in the contest? Are you ready for this? Are you ready? There it is. That is first place. Yep. It's an extremely basic letter T. How that one was deemed worthy of tickets to a winter festival at a local amusement park, I don't know. But I don't know. As someone who has no artistic skills, I am kind of questioning the skill level and artistry of this pumpkin. Like, is this just pandering? This has to be pandering, right? But here's the thing. Here's the funniest thing about this. They posted this online, and this is when everyone flipped out. Look at this. Congratulations to our 2025 Pumpkin Palooza winners. Isabella came in first place. All right. All these people won. Look at the poster. This is what I saw on Facebook that people were sending me. And they're like, did you see this? And you could see right there. Do you see the mistake they made? Because you remember, the rules of the contest said there was going to be second place, first place, and whoever got the most likes on Facebook. But according to this poster, which went viral online, it says third place, second place, first place, and this is why everyone flipped out. How on earth is that and that losing to that? It makes no sense whatsoever. And you can imagine if this is all you saw, it is the funniest poster ever, because what the hell is happening in Tigakay, South Carolina? By the way, let me show you some of the responses on Facebook to that poster, to that flyer. So talent and skill wasn't a factor in choosing a winner then? I like this one. Judging criteria. Talent? No. Religious belief? Yes. Next year, I'm showing up tipsy with a butter knife. Seems to be the winning formula. This person praised Isabella. Isabella, you were smart. You knew your audience and how to play them. Quite resourceful, actually. A perfect way to win with little talent and effort involved. Nice. Honestly, I would be mad if I competed and lost to 1/26th of the alphabet. This may be my favorite. 10th place must have been a Greek statue carved out of pumpkin. So for real, the inside of that thing better look like the Sistine Chapel. And finally, this is giving Ray Gunn, the breakdancer. I was so trying to figure out what the hell was going on here. Like another commenter mentioned that if this is purely the result of online voting, then kudos to this Isabella for knowing her audience. Like, don't you remember in the UK, they allowed popular vote to name a ship, and the winner was Bodie McBoatface? Well, in the US, if you allow popular vote on Facebook, the answer is always going to be Jesus. Or maybe everyone missed the point. I mean, you could argue that Christianity is way scarier than some carved eyeballs and faces. I mean, Tigakay, if you look on Wikipedia, Tigakay is where Jim and Tammy Faye Baker used to live. So you could totally make the argument that if you're actually looking for a scary thing, Christianity is pretty damn scary. Now, look, had the city just admitted the Christian pumpkin, the cross, got the most votes online, I don't think anyone would have been surprised, and I don't think they would have cared. You could have just said, look, this cross got the most votes on Facebook, but this sewn up face got, like, that's clearly the winner, or maybe the spooky eyeball was the winner. Totally fine, totally makes sense. That's not what they said. For what it's worth, I looked online and I saw this also. And again, this is confusing from the city. They on October 29th, hey, join us for Pumpkin Palooza. Help us crown the ultimate jack-o'-lantern. We have 50 fantastic entries. But look again, look at what they say for the prizes. They say there's a winner, and then first place and second place. And then right above it at the top of your screen right now, look what it says. We will announce the first and second place winners at the city council meeting, where they'll get a photo and a special gift. It seems like the city, by the way, these are some nice pumpkins just on the first page of the Facebook album. But in any case, when I read this, it's like, I think the city doesn't understand what the confusion is. Because in some places, they say there are 2 winners and a Facebook vote. And then in other places, they're saying there are 3 winners. And like, no, the Facebook vote is not a winner. It's just whatever your grandma and her church buddies were doing on Facebook that day. So, like, for what it's worth, as of like today, I think the creepy eyeball has more votes than the sewn up face. And I think the sewn up face has way more likes than the cross. But maybe that was not the case a couple of weeks ago when they picked the winner. So I say all that to tell you that poster is hilarious. That puts the cross as the winner. And also, it doesn't look like there's anything nefarious happening here, as far as I can tell. It just seems to stem from the city being really sloppy with how they announced the winners of their contest. It wasn't rigged. It shouldn't surprise anyone that if you have a contest that involves voting for things on Facebook, it's going to be dominated by the sort of people who spend all their time on Facebook. Right? This is not Christian nationalism in action. It is not a mix. It is not because there's a sizable Christian contingent in the area who is voting on which pumpkin was the best. It's just a mix of local government, the sort you see on like Parks and Rec, and social media and online voting. Like, not every pumpkin with a cross is a symbol of religious domination. Sometimes it's just grandma and her friends. For what it's worth, I did reach out to the city official who was in charge of this contest. And once again, this week, she did not respond to me. Because I did want to know, can you just admit this is a mistake? And the answer is, nope, not responding to you whatsoever. That's all I got for this week. What questions you got here? How many times did Jesus vote? Well, every 3 days, he gets another one. So probably a lot. The only way I could see that being the winner legitimately if it was made by a 2-year-old, probably pandering though. And that's the thing. I didn't stalk these people, but like, I don't know if it was a 2-year-old. I don't know how old Isabella is. I don't really care. But like, when you were looking through the photo album, they did not say the age or anything about the people who submitted the entries. They just said like, this is the pumpkin from Isabella, and you vote. Here's how you win in the future. Do your regular carving and put a lazy cross off to the corner. You have hijacked this contest, and if you don't enter this next year, I'm going to be very mad. My mother-in-law makes beef stew inside a pumpkin and bakes it. Epic. That sounds hard and complicated, and I'm vegetarian, but also that also sounds impressive. Like, I don't know how you can do that, but very nice. All right, we are good. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to repeat something I said at the very beginning of this live stream, which is that I will be speaking in St. Louis 1 week from today, Saturday, November 22nd, and Sunday, the 23rd. I'm speaking at the Ethical Society of St. Louis. It's all free for anyone in the public to attend. I'm giving 3 separate talks on Saturday and Sunday. Come to all of them if you like me that much. Come to one of them if you like me a little bit. But also, if you watch this live stream, I'd love to meet you. So come on out if you're able to. All the details, Den just posted the URL in the comments, but I'll post it in the show notes below. And I think that's it. Last things, go subscribe to the newsletter right here. And you can subscribe to Patreon and support what I'm doing at patreon.com/Hammond. All right, I will be back next week. I am not sure if I will do this on Wednesday or Thursday next week, but sometime next week. And that's it. I'll see you later. Have a good one.